Alright guys, so last night Joe Biden gave his State of the Union address, and this is probably going to be a pretty long video because I got a lot to get into here, but also stay tuned for tomorrow's video because I'm going to be covering this absolutely batshit insane Republican response to Biden's State of the Union with this Alabama senator who just gave this totally over-the-top, dramatic, unhinged sort of like tirade that she went on, so I'm going to be covering that tomorrow, but let's just go ahead and get into this because, again, there's a lot. So, first off, as Biden was trying to go in his motorcade to make his way to Congress to go and do this speech, there were protesters outside who were attempting to block the pathway that he was set to use. And obviously they were protesting his endless, undying support for Israel's onslaught and their genocidal war inside of Gaza. And so credit to everybody who went out to this. I mean, from the videos that I saw, it was, at least 100 or 200 or maybe even up to like 1,000 people. I don't know the official count. But at the very least, they made it a little bit more difficult for Joe Biden to go and, deliver this speech as he is in the midst of being complicit in an endless series of war crimes. We also had, I want to give a quick shout out here, Rashida Tlaib, Cori Bush, and Summer Lee. There may have been a few others that I didn't see, but they were wearing keffiyehs during this speech and holding up signs. This one says "Lasting Ceasefire Now," and on the other side of the sign it said "Stop Sending Bombs," and they were holding this up throughout his speech. So shout out to them. And now let's just go ahead and get into the actual speech itself. So we're going to start off here with Joe Biden's initial sort of like joke, I guess, at the top of this. Let's listen to this quick clip.
Good evening. If I were smart, I'd go home now.
Yeah, I mean, probably. At sort of like the broad scopes of things, the bar for my analysis on how Joe Biden was going to do in this speech was through the floor. It was below the floor. I half expected him to kind of like have a stroke in the middle of this speech. Okay, so the fact that he even got through this pre-written, teleprompter assisted speech, that in and of itself, I think is above what I expected from Joe Biden. So, in terms of how well he did during this, I think he outperformed my expectations, but again, not exactly that impressive when I didn't expect anything from him in this speech, right? So, starting off there with a quick little joke. Now we get into more of the substance. So, he started off his speech mostly talking about democracy and Ukraine. I mean, obviously the authoritarian threat of Trump to democracy, and then as well, talking about Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Let's go ahead and listen to this clip, and then I'll come out the other side and tell you guys a little bit of what I think about this.
1941, Franklin Roosevelt came to this chamber to speak to the nation, and he said, "I address you at a moment unprecedented in the history of the Union. Hitler was on the march. War was raging in Europe. President Roosevelt's purpose was to wake up Congress and alert the American people that this was no ordinary time. Freedom and democracy were under assault in the world. Tonight, I come to this same chamber to address the nation. Now, it's we who face an unprecedented moment in the history of the Union. And yes, my purpose tonight is to wake up the Congress and alert the American people that this is no ordinary moment either. Not since President Lincoln and the Civil War have freedom and democracy been under assault at home as they are today. What makes our moment rare is that freedom and democracy are under attack both at home and overseas at the very same time. Overseas, Putin of Russia is on the march, invading Ukraine and sowing chaos throughout Europe and beyond. If anybody in this room thinks Putin will stop at Ukraine, I assure you he will not."
Okay, so a couple different things on this. First off, it's not what I would have started my speech with, talking about the Russian invasion of Ukraine. This is, however, if you look at the polling data, one of Biden's strongest issues going into 2024. So I guess from that perspective, it kind of makes sense. But on the other hand, listening to this guy talk about belief and support for democracy and human rights and freedom in regards to Ukraine, at the same time that we know that he is behind the scenes aiding and abetting and funding and arming a genocide in Gaza right now, it's hard to believe that you actually have those core principles. You don't. I mean, at the end of the day, the United States government views Israel as a geopolitically strategic ally, and so we're willing to completely overlook the fact that it is an apartheid state that is engaging in an illegal occupation of the Palestinian people, that is engaging in a slow-rolling ethnic cleansing in the West Bank, and violating international law with their illegal settlements there, that is engaging in an endless streak of war crimes in Gaza and a genocidal war there that even the ICJ, the highest court of the United Nations, deemed to be a plausible genocide. Like, it's not easy to overlook your support for Israel, while you're turning around and talking about Russia's invasion of Ukraine and how brutal and terrible and an assault on freedom and democracy that was, right? Now, obviously, I'm not a fan of Putin by any stretch of the imagination. I think that the invasion of Ukraine has been brutal. It has been completely unjustifiable. But on the other hand, what is the actual strategy when it comes to Ukraine? Like on a substantive level? Because the Biden administration wants to send tens and tens of more billions of dollars to help the Ukrainians defend their territory or to take it back or whatever the case may be. At this point, we've had hundreds of thousands of troops that have been, casualties of this war on either side. And it doesn't seem like the front lines are changing in really any way at all, but definitely not changing in a seriously beneficial way for the Ukrainian side of this equation. And so the question just becomes like, inevitably every single war is either going to end with one side winning a total victory, or it's going to end in some sort of a negotiation. And so at this point, we're multiple years into this. The front lines aren't really changing. We've dumped tens of billions of dollars into this war. And, at some point, you just have to have a ceasefire. You just have to have some sort of an uncomfortable negotiation to end the war. And so continuing to push on that line, I don't know, maybe it's politically beneficial. Obviously the Republican Party tends to be leaning against that more and more so recently. But, I don't know exactly what the plan is from his perspective in regards to Ukraine. So, obviously we have another clip here that I just wanted to play real quick where he's talking about similar things here and, just noting the difference between Kamala Harris here and Mike Johnson in the background, who obviously is the leader of the Republicans in the House and isn't a fan of continuing to send aid to Ukraine. So let's go ahead and watch this clip real quick.
The President Putin, who I've known for a long time, is simple. We will not walk away. We will not bow down. I will not bow down. In a literal sense, history is watching.
Okay, so again, yet to be seen exactly how the negotiations over further additional Ukraine aid are going to go. A lot of Republicans, again, have been, blockading that aid. I don't know how this is all going to play out. I think it's an interesting decision to start your speech talking about democracy and, freedom and all of that stuff, and Ukraine and Russia's brutal, illegal invasion of Ukraine, again, while you are simultaneously backing and arming and funding a genocide, with one of our supposed allies in, in Israel. So, again, that is what it is. Let's go ahead and move on to a couple other clips here. So this one was Biden basically going after the Supreme Court over their Dobbs decision and overturning Roe v. Wade. So let's watch a little bit of this because I think that, abortion is probably the single greatest asset politically that Democrats have on their side right now. If there was any issue that was going to give them a leg up and bail them out and potentially help Biden defeat Trump, then it would probably be an issue like abortion. So let's see what Biden has to say about that.
Electoral power. Electoral or political power. You're about to realize just how much you're right about that. Clearly. Those bragging about overturning Roe v. Wade have no clue about the power of women. But they found out when reproductive freedom was on the ballot. We won in 2022 and 2020, and we'll win again in 2024.
Okay, so again, he's not wrong that the, largely Trump-appointed Supreme Court justices were responsible for overturning Roe v. Wade. He's not wrong to use this as a political bludgeon to use against Republicans and these SCOTUS members, for being so aggressively anti-abortion. And, that we covered that story out of Alabama where their Supreme Court was ruling that, even IVF should basically be outlawed and that an embryo is the exact same thing as an alive human child. So, we've seen all of the different instances of Republicans waging, a war on abortion rights and on, birth control and other things like that. And their position is incredibly unpopular. So this is a very popular political issue for Joe Biden. But a couple of questions. I mean, first off, you say abortion was on the ballot 2018, 2020, 2022. That may be the case, but you guys didn't follow through on anything. Roe v. Wade has not been codified. And he did say in this speech that he would push forward with trying to codify Roe v. Wade. But like Democrats have had, 50 years to do that? And they haven't done it, right? And so you should have done it a long time ago. But even if you're promising to do it in 2024, which I think is a good political strategy to make that promise to the American people, but you need a supermajority in the Senate to be able to do that thing, to get that legislation through Congress. Biden isn't even in favor of removing the filibuster in order to make it much easier to codify Roe v. Wade under federal legislation. So, I don't know. I mean, it's just kind of like one of those issues that Democrats, wave over people's heads. I mean, sure, if you have a Democrat in power, they're most likely not going to aggressively further erode abortion rights or reproductive rights in any capacity. But also, this is not something that you guys are engaging with in a way that could actually lead to it being protected under federal law, even though that is something that obviously should happen. Now, this is a good deviation from some of the previous things I've talked about, with Joe Biden basically talking about abortion as if it's something that he doesn't necessarily support. Like there was that recent, I think it was a Politico article that came out where Joe Biden was basically saying, well, I believe in Roe v. Wade, but at the same time, I'm a Catholic guy, and I don't believe in this whole kind of my body, my choice kind of thing. I think there need to be limitations on it. And it's you cannot be mealy-mouthed about this, okay? You have to take a strong position, at least for your own political sake, right? And so I guess that was a little bit stronger than other things that I've said, or other things that I've seen. Now we move on to this. So this I think was a decent call out against Republicans who are basically just going around to their own constituents and bragging about local investments, specifically investments that have come as a result of legislation that they specifically voted against. So this was a good little pot shot here. Let's go ahead and listen to this.
And thanks to our bipartisan infrastructure law, 46,000 new projects have been announced all across your communities. And by the way, I noticed some of you strongly voted against it, or they're cheering on that money coming in. I like it. I'm with you. I'm with you. If any of you don't want that money in your district, just let me know. Modernizing our roads and bridges, ports and airports, public transit systems. Removing poisonous lead pipes so every child can drink clean water without risk of brain damage.
Okay, so, I mean, listen, the bipartisan infrastructure bill, it did have, some degree of investments in everything that he just listed there. Do I think that it went far enough? No, absolutely not. Nowhere close to far enough, right? This was a bill that was chipped away at by, corporate Democrats within his own party. Of course, you didn't have Republican support broadly for that bill. I mean, there are many Republicans who voted against it. But, at the end of the day, that is kind of a fair point, that you have so many different Republicans, and this happens across the board. It's not just on infrastructure bills, right? It's on so many different things where Democrats will pass some sort of an investment that benefits people, and then Republicans will go out to their constituents and even in some cases put it in their campaign ads, I brought this money to the district. And it's no, you didn't. You voted against that bill. So you can't then turn around and pretend as if you were responsible for bringing that to the district, right? And again, it's kind of the idea that Republicans want to slash a lot of these programs. They don't want to make big, bold investments in any of these things. And so, they in the back of their minds, as they're simultaneously pushing with that kind of an agenda, they also realize, okay, we do need these investments, right? We do need basic investments in repairing roads and, building, infrastructure for rail networks and, just making sure that our infrastructure is not crumbling into oblivion and that our bridges aren't falling apart and shit like that. It's very basic stuff that you would think the wealthiest country on the face of the planet would be able to handle pretty easily. But, fair call out there, I guess, from Joe Biden. Now we move on to this. So Joe Biden also had a call out where he basically blasted Republicans for the 2017 Trump tax cuts that overwhelmingly went to the millionaire, billionaire corporate class in this country, and hung it over their heads and dared them to say that they wouldn't do anything like that in the future, which they obviously absolutely want to do. But let's go ahead and watch this clip.
Republicans can cut Social Security and give more tax breaks to the wealthy. That's the proposal. Oh no, you guys don't want another $2 trillion tax cut? I kind of thought that's what your plan was. Well, that's good to hear. You're not going to cut another $2 trillion to the super wealthy. That's good to hear. I'll protect and strengthen Social Security and make the wealthy pay their fair share.
Okay, again, I mean, another popular issue there. Now, he's 100% correct that under the Trump administration, that was basically his biggest accomplishment, was a gigantic tax cut for billionaires and corporations. And so, I mean, that's an absolute fact. It's also an absolute fact that Republicans broadly, although Trump has come out, on several different occasions and said he doesn't want to aggressively cut Social Security, but the Republican Party has been trying to cut Social Security for years and years and years. I mean, basically since the program got started, they have been trying to slash it and cut it and reduce the benefits and all of that. And the solution here is the one that Bernie Sanders proposed, which is all you need to do is like slightly lift the cap or remove the cap on how much you pay into Social Security for people. There's like a cap at like, I forget the exact number, like $200,000 or so, let's say, where any money that you are making in your income above that threshold of $200,000, you no longer have to pay into Social Security above that amount. So it's just a way for people who are wealthy and people who have disproportionately higher incomes in this country to not have to pay a proportionate amount into Social Security. And if you remove that cap, you remove that threshold and have them pay proportionately into the program, it's completely solvent for the foreseeable future. That addresses any, fake concerns from Republicans. Oh, Social Security is going to go bankrupt. It's like, no, it's not. You can easily fund this if you just make wealthier people pay a little bit more, pay their fair share into Social Security. So he's 100% correct about that. Now, we move on to something that Biden was abysmal on and has been abysmal on recently. So I didn't get to cover this on the channel at the time, but a couple of days ago, he came out and basically asked Donald Trump to push Republicans to adopt his border bill that he's been proposing. And this border bill, I mean, it basically just adopts the reactionary Republican framing on the issue of immigration. There's no long-term protection there for undocumented immigrants and having a pathway towards citizenship, which is previously what Democrats claimed that they were fighting for. And, it's basically adopting a significant amount of the Republican Party's agenda when it comes to immigration, significantly militarizing the border and, cracking down and speeding up the process of deporting people. And, it does have some decent things in there, like increasing the amount of judges at that handle these kinds of cases at the border, so that we can speed up the process and it doesn't take years and years and years to adjudicate. So like there are some pieces of it that are okay, but then the rest of it is just full-blown right-wing reactionary draconian crackdowns on the border. Okay. And so he was talking about that and trying to basically get an own on Republicans because they're not in favor of his bill, essentially only because Donald Trump wants to use immigration and the chaos at the border and these scary illegal immigrants coming into the country as a, fear-mongering political campaign tactic, right? So let's hear a little bit about this, and then we'll get to another immigration moment that was going viral.
In November, my team began serious negotiation with a bipartisan group of senators. The result was a bipartisan bill with the toughest set of border security reforms we've ever seen. Oh, you don't think so? Oh, you don't like that bill, huh? That conservatives got together and said it was a good bill? I'll be darned. That's amazing. That bipartisan bill would hire 1,500 more security agents and officers, 100 more immigration judges to help tackle the backload of 2 million cases, 4,300 more asylum officers, and new policies so they can resolve cases in 6 months instead of 6 years now. In November.
Okay, so the guy at the end here is Senator James Lankford, who was nodding along because he was basically the main Republican that was helping Biden to craft this supposedly bipartisan piece of legislation. And so he's pissed off because Republicans just threw him under the bus when Trump came out and said, no, you guys shouldn't support this border legislation. And so they completely threw him under the bus and pretended as if this was some sort of like an uber left-wing bill. And he's sitting there like, no, it's not. I liked this bill. Like, I am a hard right guy when it comes to immigration, and there were tons of hard right, policies that were within this bill, and I helped to craft it, and then you all just fucked me over. And so it's kind of funny to see him sitting there. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't want this bill to get passed. I think it's a bad bill. I think it doesn't address the underlying issues with the border and with immigration in general, right? And so I'm glad that it's not getting passed. But again, I mean, from Democrats' perspective, they're like, we're basically giving you guys almost everything that you want. Okay, we're giving you 80% of what you guys want, and you still won't support it because Trump wants to run on this for 2024. I mean, like, number one, they're kind of correct on that political analysis of it, but number two, Again, this is a complete contradiction to what you guys pretended like you believed in just a couple of years ago. I mean, this is the same Democratic Party that back in 2018, 2020 was talking about Donald Trump and Republican immigration policy as if they were literally Hitler, okay? As if they are fascists, which I wouldn't even disagree with the label of many Republicans as fascists, but you cannot run that kind of a campaign and put out that kind of messaging and just a couple years later completely flip it around. And pretend as if you're now, on the opposite side of the spectrum, and you now endorse the reactionary framing of immigration. And that's exactly what they've done. Now, for Biden personally, it's not surprising. This is the same Joe Biden who decades ago, when he was in the Senate, was way before Donald Trump talking about building a southern border wall. I mean, Biden has always been right-wing on the issue of immigration. But for the rest of these Democrats to applaud him, to stand up in cheers for a bill that just a couple of years ago you all would have been vehemently against. I mean, it just kind of shows like you don't really have core principles when it comes to this policy. You don't have core principles when it comes to immigration. You're just in a battle back and forth with Republicans on this now, of who can sort of like outflank each other from the right. Because now Democrats are trying to pretend, oh, it's actually Republicans that aren't trying to crack down on the border. We're the real ones who are going to crack down on the border. And so now we move to this second immigration clip that came out, where in this very bizarre interaction, Marjorie Taylor Greene, the QAnon delusional senator, unfortunately from my home state of Georgia, handed Joe Biden a pin. Okay, and on this pin was the name of a girl from my home state in Georgia who was killed recently. Now, I haven't been very closely tracking the specific details of that story. My understanding is that she was killed by an undocumented immigrant. Okay, now that doesn't say literally anything about immigration as an issue. Okay, we know the statistics on this. We've known this for years. Undocumented immigrants commit crimes, whether it's property crimes, violent crimes, whatever the case may be, at a lower level than natural-born American citizens. Okay, so this should not be weaponized into something to say broadly about immigrants coming to the United States. Okay, of course, that's how Republicans are trying to spin it. So Marjorie Taylor Greene, when Biden's walking up to the podium here, hands him a pin that says this girl's name on it. Her name, I believe, is Laken Riley. Okay, and so she's going to scream out, her name, say her name, whatever, as he's part in the part of his speech on immigration, and he is going to respond by initially getting the name of the person wrong who was killed, and then using some questionable rhetoric when it comes to undocumented immigrants here.
Smuggling fentanyl into America. That's killing thousands of children. This bill would save lives and bring order to the border. It will also give me and any new president new emergency authority to temporarily shut down the border when the number of migrants at the border is overwhelming. The Border Patrol Union has endorsed this bill. The Federal Chamber of Commerce is, yeah. You're saying low. Look at the facts. I know you know how to read. I believe that given the opportunity for a majority in the House and Senate would endorse the bill as well, the majority right now. But unfortunately, politics has derailed this bill so far. I'm told my predecessor called members of Congress in the Senate to demand they block the bill. He feels political win. He viewed it as a political win for me and a political loser for him. It's not about him. It's not about me. I'd be a winner. Not really. Lincoln Riley, an innocent young woman who was killed by an illegal. That's right. But how many of the thousands of people being killed by illegals? To her parents, I say, my heart goes out to you, having lost children myself. I understand. But look, if we change the dynamic at the border, people pay these smugglers $8,000 to get across the border.
Okay. So again, there's a lot going on there. He got the name wrong, number one. He refers to undocumented immigrants as illegals, which is kind of like classic throwback Joe Biden there. And you have Marjorie Taylor Greene wearing the goddamn MAGA hat during his speech and screaming out at him. I mean, listen, guys, again, it's not surprising given who Joe Biden is and has been throughout his entire career. The thing that really stands out to me here is, again, Democrats applauding his right-wing reactionary, border bill, and then turning around, and I saw many of them on Twitter getting upset that he used the term illegal to talk about this undocumented immigrant who, I guess, killed this person in Georgia. So Democrats were more angry at the rhetoric that he used to describe an undocumented immigrant than they are about his draconian right-wing reactionary border policy, which kind of says a lot, right? It's a lot of aesthetics that they're interested in, not as much of the actual underlying substance there. I don't think that it was a good move for him to engage with Marjorie Taylor Greene in really any way, shape, or form during this speech, to bring up the pin that he brought out. I mean, all of this was just such a clusterfuck. He was fumbling over his words. You know, what was he even saying there? But how many of the thousands of people are being killed by illegals? So I guess that he's trying to say, like, you know, there's not that many people who are being killed by illegals. You know, I mean, I don't know, man. Just a complete clusterfuck there. Now, just a couple more things, and we'll finish this off. This was Biden on Israel here, where, you know, let's just go ahead and watch this, and I'll give you guys my thoughts on this.
Israel has a added burden because Hamas hides and operates among the civilian population like cowards under hospitals, daycare centers, and all the like. Israel also has a fundamental responsibility, though, to protect innocent civilians in Gaza. This war.
Okay, so the reason I found that clip somewhat notable is that he kind of just contradicts himself, like sentence by sentence, right? Because on the one hand, he starts that off saying that, you know, it's a difficult situation for Israel because they're trying to take out Hamas, and Hamas are a bunch of cowards who are hiding under daycares and hospitals, right? Which is basically a tacit endorsement of Israel attacking hospitals and daycares, which they have been doing by the hundreds. Okay, I've shown you guys the Euromed Human Rights Monitor estimates of how many healthcare facilities, how many healthcare workers, how many schools, how many teachers have been attacked, killed, destroyed during Israel's offensive. The notion that that can be explained by Hamas operating some sort of a rocket launcher or some sort of a secret base underneath all of the hundreds of hospitals and schools that have been attacked is utterly ridiculous. And so by using that line, you're effectively giving them permission to bomb those locations, right? Which is a war crime. It's a complete war crime. Israel has claimed that Hamas is under every single thing that they have bombed since October 7th, right? They have effectively flattened the entirety of the northern strip of Gaza. It's completely uninhabitable. The idea that all of these hospitals, the schools, the mosques, the churches, the UN shelters, the refugee camps, the residential buildings, that all of that, they were specifically going after Hamas. And it's just, it's unfortunate. They had no choice but to flatten the entirety of the civilian infrastructure in Gaza because it's Hamas's fault. You're giving them permission to do that, right? And then he follows it up, saying Israel also has a fundamental responsibility to protect civilians in Gaza. Again, that's a contradiction. You can't, on the one hand, sort of give them a subtle, cover for obliterating civilian infrastructure and then turn around and say they have a responsibility for protecting civilians. They're not protecting civilians. They're targeting civilians. 2/3 of the people they've killed so far have been women and children. When you include innocent men in that equation, it's likely anywhere between like 80 to 95% of the people who they have killed have been innocent civilians. They're currently starving the population of Gaza. People are now starving every single day to death inside of Gaza, with a potential famine of hundreds of thousands of people looming on the horizon in the immediate future. They are blockading the aid from getting into Gaza, so much so that you feel the need to go out and set up a port, a floating port off the coast of Gaza, and to airdrop aid from planes that now, as I covered earlier today, is falling on Palestinians and killing them. I mean, you cannot possibly look not only on the actions of the Israeli military. I mean, how many countless war crimes have we seen IDF soldiers literally just post on their TikToks or their Facebook pages, but also these statements from Israeli politicians openly admitting their genocidal intent. You cannot possibly look at that and pretend as if Israel not only hasn't had any care for civilian life or hasn't been protecting it enough, but you can't come to any other conclusion than they are specifically targeting civilian infrastructure and targeting civilians as a matter of their war, because their goal in this war is not to eliminate Hamas, okay? It is to eliminate the ability for Palestinians to exist inside of Gaza. That's the goal. That's why you hear them talking about pushing them into the Sinai Peninsula or forcing them to flee to other surrounding Middle Eastern countries. It is an ethnic cleansing campaign. That's what it is. It's not a war against Hamas. They're not targeting Hamas operatives. And so, of course, as expected, his portion on Israel and Gaza was pretty pathetic. I don't know how anybody could expect anything else. Now, I'll finish off just real quick with this. It does look like the reaction to his speech was overwhelmingly positive. 62% of the people polled who watched the speech say that Biden's policies will move the country in the right direction. Prior to the speech, only 45% of those polled felt the same thing. So it went from 45% to 62%, almost like a 20-point jump there, or a 17-point jump there for Biden. So clearly, I mean, this was a good speech for anybody who watched it. Maybe they were slightly more inclined to think that Biden was, on the right track. So that's what the American people apparently had to say according to the polling data. And I'll just finish off with this. I mean, Donald Trump, of course, doing his shit posting in the middle of all of this over on Truth Social, basically just putting like TikTok filters, it looks like, over Biden and Kamala. I mean, I don't know what the fuck to say about that. I mean, this is kind of typical Trump shit going on over there. And he went on a bunch of other tirades as well throughout this entire thing. Now, I mean, again, listen, my expectations for Joe Biden were basically through the floor. The bar was all the way in hell. I'm surprised he made it even through this speech. He did have a bunch of different, sort of mini slip-ups, not as many as I would have thought, and not as aggressive as I would have thought. In terms of how he did, I mean, listen, he did talk about unions. He talked about bringing back manufacturing jobs. He talked about abortion. He talked about, trashing Republicans for their threat to democracy. So there were a couple good things that I think that he added in there and did pretty decently on. But then again, when it comes to issues like Israel, when it comes to issues like immigration, I mean, he was awful on, right? So, I mean, I have my specific interpretation of how he did. I guess if I had to give him a grade, I'd probably give him like a, on a Biden grade, not an objective grade, but relative to what I expected from Joe Biden, I'd say maybe like a solid B, a B minus or something. He had a lot more energy than I expected. I don't know what they gave him before the speech, but he definitely had a lot more energy than I was expecting. So, I mean, yeah, there you go. That's really all I got to say about it. Let me know what you guys think about how Biden did. Is this going to make some sort of a difference? Is this going to lead to him maybe doing more public appearances? Who knows? Let me know what you guys think about how Biden did. And again, tomorrow I'm going to be covering the deranged Republican Alabama senator response to Biden's State of the Union. So, like, subscribe, comment, all of that good stuff. And I'll have more for y'all very soon.